Hello again. Darcy just came through. You can see right there, that's where Darcy goes back and forth. Is it going? Yep. So I can't really have a full green screen and lock her out. That would be cruel. And I love my girl. So I'll let her have a little passage. So a few weeks ago, I did a stream where I watched Amir complain about black people with Nick Fuentes. They weren't having a conversation together. Amir was reacting to a Nick Fuentes video about black fatigue, and it was interesting to say the least. So I ran across another Amir video. He doesn't really pop up in my feed very often because I don't subscribe to him or like any of his videos. So it's rare for one to actually pop up in my recommended. And this one is about autistic people. I wonder if Amir is as nice to autistic people as he is black people. I'm very curious. When's that other shoe gonna drop?
That being said, in this video, we're focusing specifically on autism, and although we'll touch on it a little bit, how autism and ADHD do cross a lot of different paths. Autism or autism spectrum disorder is a developmental difference in how someone experiences the world, especially in how they communicate, how they interact with other people around them, and how they process information. And it's called a spectrum because it shows up in a variety of people that.
I feel like that's where I was for a very long time. And then I said, fuck all that, and just started being myself. So let's see what he says. Or if he's just going to give us the DSM-5 definition again, which maybe he didn't do that for autism. I don't know. I'm being too judgmental.
I am a high-masking autistic person, and this means that on the outside, I'm also seemingly high-functioning. Autism is mostly an invisible disability, and this is why I wish there was more focus on the internal experience of autism. On the outside, I may just seem like a quiet, sometimes socially awkward person, but on the inside, it's a much more rich and oftentimes more challenging experience than what people perceive from the outside. And this isn't anyone's fault. There just aren't many people who understand my internal experience or the internal experience of those who are on the autism spectrum.
And I think this is also a clear example of why, one, more people are identifying with autism and learning more about it in themselves, but two, this points to what we think autism is. It points to, I think, a society and a collective, you think of people who have autism as someone, you think of the kids in a special needs class back in elementary school, middle school, and high school. That's all it is. Like, you think it's someone that you see clearly has special needs.
That is something I've also noticed. There's a huge subset of people that still exist that equate autism with Down syndrome. And that's very frustrating. And that's not good, obviously, because they are very different things. And Down syndrome does have identifiable markers. Visibly, you can see it in people. So whenever someone that is autistic tells another person, and they're like, what, you don't look autistic? That's because they generally are looking for the signs that people have when they have Down syndrome. And of course, there's always someone's nephew. So you don't look autistic. You don't act like my nephew does. That's a classic right there. And it's like, well, I'm sorry to break it to you, but I'm not your nephew. So I'm sure plenty of autistic people can tell you all about that. Maybe Amir is autistic. I don't know. I know he was diagnosed with ADHD because he told me in person, late night. I'm joking. He said it earlier in the video. And I can't diagnose people with autism or anything. I'm not a doctor, so I'm not going to speculate on anyone's brain beyond what they tell me. So let's keep going. Let's see what happens.
Trying to be respectful as possible, but also relatable. That's what people think of, when in reality, autism shows up in a lot of different ways. Right, and it's people that have just put on a mask and they've assimilated into society when reality is very taxing for them. That is a thing. And so
autistic burnout is one of the realest things I've ever experienced. Everyone knows what burnout is, or have at least heard of it, but I had never experienced it until I spent a couple of years in a more hostile environment for autistic people. And it was to the point that energy just didn't exist. I didn't know what the hell was wrong with me, but I knew something wasn't right. Where is all this fatigue and almost depression qualities? Where is that coming from? And doing research is like, oh my God, it's autistic burnout. I was trying to mask for too long. Just a little bit of masking I've always done, so that wasn't where it was coming from. But I was trying to freaking keep it strapped to my face and never let it slip. And that was very difficult. It was hard. And it led to the autistic burnout. So we're still doing pretty good. Let's keep going.
Looking in, it's clear if we know more about autism and we know more about the different spectrum and what it means, it's clear that more people are going to be identifying with it and it's going to be on the rise. That's just how my brain works. That's how I look at it. If we know autism is more than just the one kid you may see or experience or the one cousin you may have, whatever it may be, that has the very lots of stimming, the noises, like needs the level 3 that needs a lot of help. We know that this includes level 1 and level 2. Obviously, this opens up the door for a lot of more people out there.
Most people don't understand the anxiety that comes along with my autism. Most people don't understand that when I say I'm overstimulated, it's not in a silly, goofy way. It's usually to the point that it's painful. People don't understand how hard it is to have such a rigid brain and a rigid thinking style that when there's something that disrupts my routine, it causes me so much distress to the point that I sometimes will shut down or have an autistic meltdown.
That is extremely real. Once I get a routine and I expect things to fall in place in a certain way and they don't, it is such a freaking, I don't even know how to describe it. It's jarring, I guess. It's like transitions I don't do well with in the first place, but if something transitions in the middle of a sequence of events that I believe are supposed to play out in this particular way, my brain just locks up and it's like, I can see it in my mind's eyes. It's hard to describe, honestly, but it's kind of shattering of expectations for a situation. And that could be hard to pick yourself up from. Even if it's not like something bad happened, it's just the unexpected cease of whatever your sequence was supposed to be in your head, and then the transition into the not new situation, but new dynamics in a situation, I guess would be the best way I know to describe it right now.
People don't understand that I'm not trying to be rude in conversations. I'm not trying to seem better than you. I just
That's
don't know how to
huge.
respond to you. Communication through these videos is a lot easier because there isn't necessarily a dialogue, and I can just speak however I want. I can take as many pauses as I want, but normal conversations are so hard. My brain is completely blank. It's just so unnatural for me.
And I appreciate this guy sharing his experience because there are a lot of people, especially in the comment section, that relate with this man. But it's also unfortunate because there are a lot of people out there who look at this man and say, oh, he doesn't look like he has autism. He's talking to a camera. He's completely fine. When maybe...
Let me move out of the way. Not this man, but the other man. I'm all up in the way. And my chair's in the way. This is, since I'm here, why not? This is a purple seat cover that I got in my trucking days. And I had 2 of them. So I strapped one to the back of this chair to be back support. So, sat back too far. But what I was going to say is the man on the left, to me at least, does look autistic. Not that there is a defined look to autism, but I don't know. I get those vibes. But I have noticed over the years that if I was just looking at a picture of that guy, I probably wouldn't say that, but listening to him speak probably did poison the well, so to speak, on my reaction to Amir saying that this dude doesn't look or act autistic. But what I was going to say is that over the years, I have definitely noticed that autistic people can instantly identify each other. And a lot of those social barriers do go away between the autistic people communicating and interacting with each other because it just feels more natural. That's what I've found. And looking back over my life, I've been able to identify, not diagnose or anything like that, but a lot of friendships I have had, especially whenever I was in middle, in elementary, high school, just school, not college. I didn't make it very far to make friends there. But generally, every year, I would find someone that I just connected with. And looking back on it now, as an adult, I feel like those were other autistic people that we were able to connect with each other and not have those social barriers trying to fit in with other classmates or anything like that, because that just didn't work for me or for the people I would form those connections with. So there isn't an autistic look. I will take my initial comment back, but I will say, and I could be wrong here obviously, there's definitely a vibe. And one of the big ones that the other dude mentioned was when he said, I don't think I'm better than you. I don't think, anything like that. But that, I don't know how, I don't know why, but that is a vibe that autistic people, like myself, put out into the world. I can't tell you how many interactions I've had with people where later on, talking to someone else that knows them, they tell me, oh, we met so-and-so. Oh, they kind of felt like this. Because it's a real problem, but that's their problem, not mine. If you want to feel that way about me just trying to communicate with you, well, then I'm better off not knowing you. And I don't feel shy about making those kinds of statements. So maybe that is putting out that vibe, but that's not me saying I feel like I'm better than anyone. That's just me saying I choose who I interact with and associate with. I'm not just going to associate with everybody. And maybe that's not because I think I'm better than them. We don't jive. So I'm just not going to do it. That's it. That's the beginning and end of it. I just don't think we would have very much to talk about. And that gets interpreted as, because I don't think we have much to talk about because I am so far above you and I'm up here perched on my ivory tower. And so I've never been on an ivory tower. I've tried. They just throw freaking rocks at me until I get knocked out and fall back down to the ground. But that's neither here nor there.
We should be more empathetic to people and understand and hear them out. I understand there are some bad apples that ruin the experience for people who actually deal with autism. But
I don't know, Amir. Do you understand that there's a few bad apples? Do you? Oh, you had a whole video where you were sitting there nodding your head with Nick Fuentes, watching a few TikToks of black people being obnoxious. But I guess the few bad apples, that doesn't apply to them, but it does to autistic people. I don't know about that.
on the other side, we should still have some patience and understand where these people are coming from. Because I can already hear some people being like, oh, just grow up, pansy, or he's just being a pussy, or he needs to do this or that. When clearly, if there are millions of people relating to content like this and really trying to put to words what they've been experiencing their entire lives, maybe there's something to it. And maybe for those who are very neurotypical, for those that don't have autism, don't have ADHD, whatever it may be, to just pause and take in what these people are saying.
Impossible. Just saying. If someone's telling you to get over it, pussy, and stuff like that, they're not going to hear you out, ever. That's just not in their agenda. They wouldn't be able to feel like they're better than you if they actually sat down and took in the information and tried to give you a little bit of empathy. They're so concerned with you thinking you're better than them that they have to call you a pussy so they can feel better than you. It's all so much bullshit. The world is just so fucking exhausting. Oh my god. Sorry about that.
You're just labels. You're perfectly fine. You don't need a label like that. These are the labels I had before my diagnosis. Spoiled brat, difficult, control freak, weirdo, high maintenance, annoying, bitch, rude, self-centered, bossy, temperamental, sensitive, black sheep, too much, dramatic, not enough, try hard, teacher's pet, attention whore, show off, know-it-all, ditzy, bad listener, gullible, chaotic, misbehaved. The list goes on. These labels caused me to develop depression and anxiety. I thought I was broken and unfixable, when in reality, I just had undiagnosed autism and ADHD. My autism and ADHD label diagnosis saved my life, and I don't think I'd still be here if I hadn't been diagnosed.
I agree with this lady. Everything she just said was perfectly reasonable and valid.
Instead of being scared of the autism or ADHD diagnosis, think about what other labels are being forced onto and ingrained into undiagnosed people. We deserve answers.
Facts. Again,
I think this is why autistic people are able to pick up on that vibe from each other. Because it's like, we've all been through this crap, especially if it's mixed in with some ADHD. That is nightmare fuel, just being honest. And maybe that's the vibe that we put out there, that we are able to identify in each other. Maybe. I'm not a psychiatrist.
I'll save the ADHD and my experience with that for another video, but this video is so true and relatable in the sense that very quick to judge someone. It's like, oh, well, I have autism, or oh, I have ADHD, or I have depression, or I have anxiety. Sometimes we're very quick to judge those people for having these labels, when in reality, you're still labeling them no matter what, with all these different names and bullying and judgments. You're still casting different labels and how you're viewing them yourself, especially for all the people who are neurotypical, or if we want to just break it down and just say normal. For anyone that doesn't act normal, they're oftentimes bullied. They're oftentimes called names. Oh, you're doing it wrong, or why you're always messing it up, or you're acting special, you're being weird. The list can go on. When in reality, their experience isn't wrong. The way they're going through life isn't wrong. It's just not neurotypical. It's called having autism. It's called having ADHD. And that label in itself, and knowing that, and having that baseline and understanding that about yourself, saves more lives than people may realize. Because on one end, autism is rising, and it's
Amir, you need to say something unreasonable. Otherwise, I'm just going to be sitting here nodding my head with a freaking potential racist. Your other video provided no grace to other people. But now, all of a sudden, am I losing my mind? Yes, I have been very clear that I am a crazy person. But am I missing something? I think that is more appropriate than losing my mind. Because if I'm not mistaken, he provided no grace at all to the black people he was reacting to in his freaking Nick Fuentes video. What the hell, dude? I don't even want to say I bet, but dude, come on.
trending and more people are diagnosing themselves with it, but there's also a rise in people actually getting clinically diagnosed, actually seeking out and getting the help that they need to understand how to navigate this world that's best for them. Because at the end of the day, the person is still here. That person, they're not necessarily changing. They got diagnosed with autism, but they've always had autism. You got diagnosed with ADHD, but they've always had ADHD. This isn't something that you're just catching. This isn't something that's just spreading around. No, it's real things that people are going through, experiencing, and getting help for. Even for me, when I was out in college and I was actually living on my own for once, I quickly, immediately saw that, oh, I'm very different. I already know what's different in high school. Like, I was voted most unique. I always spent time with the teachers. I never really was in lunch. I never really had like a friend group. I hopped around a lot. I knew how I was navigating things very different than the average person out there, but I never knew how to put to words what I was feeling or what I was dealing with. I knew something was off extremely to the point where I did drop out and I did take a year off because I just didn't understand. Like, I changed my major 7 times, you guys. Like, I just didn't know how to navigate anything. What I did know is that I needed to seek professional help, and that's what I did, and I'm glad I did, because now I have the tools to best understand myself, and I know what works for people that have a brain like me and what doesn't work. And that's why I'm so excited to partner with today's sponsor, BetterHelp, because they make this first step of seeking professional help way less overwhelming. BetterHelp will connect you to a licensed therapist who can actually help you get to the root of whatever you're dealing with, whether it's your first month.
Have you ever wondered why there's so many more people diagnosed with autism than there was even 5?
If I had to guess, in this section, he's just going to be like, the obvious. He said very reasonable things so far. That is not what I was hoping for, to be honest. But he'll probably say, it's like, we didn't know what it was, we didn't know how to identify it, so now that we can, of course the rates are going to go up. Just like whenever we stop beating kids for being left-handed, the rate of left-handed people went up to about 50%. I know, that's crazy, right? Same thing with gay people. It's not quite that high, but it used to be only 3% of any given population was gay. And then we stopped killing them, and we let them be themselves. It's about 30%, I want to say. About 30% of any given population identifies as some kind of queer. So, same thing with autistic people. Not so much in the being allowed to live your life, but more of, we know how to identify it now. So let's go to diagnosed as an adult.
Think about.
I didn't know until very recently, when I was 48. I didn't know until I was 48. So my whole life I was like, why is this so hard? And then when you're like, oh, all of those.
Perfect example. All these late diagnoses and people actually going getting testing or understanding who they are, and this whole time they've been living this life not a part of any statistic. They're just a quote unquote normal person or neurotypical person, when in reality this is someone with autism and just got diagnosed later on in life. Therefore, he's always been there, and that would have made them numbers in them charts go like that. Instead of the numbers rising, it's going like that, where it's kind of leveling out because the late diagnosis is happening.
It's like now everything makes
That's
sense.
what I thought.
It's like such a
he would say
gift to be given that information.
It really is.
Quick and go, oh, those things are this, not that. And then you can also move forward in a different way, because you have understanding and some new tools and skills and things, and you're like, oh, now I can navigate these situations differently. So you start to change.
This is the best part about getting an actual diagnosis and getting actual help with these things, whether it be autism or ADHD, because it unlocks so many tools.
I agree with everything both of these people are saying, but I just thought of something mildly maybe extremely hilarious. But maybe we can get Amir to give black people some grace if we start diagnosing black people as black. Amir, don't you understand? Those people that you're talking mad shit about, they were diagnosed last year with black. It's like, oh, I'm sorry, I take it back. I know that's completely absurd, what I just said, but there's a funny concept in there somewhere. A funnier concept in there somewhere.
And resources to you that you can learn, like, oh, damn, I thought I was just difficult. I thought I was just hard to deal with. I thought something was just wrong with me. When in reality, there's a lot more people out there.
I thought I was just born with a lot of melanin in my skin. But then later on in life, when I was 42 years old, I went to the doctor and I actually got diagnosed as black. And finally, it all started making sense. Moving on.
Dealing with the same things I'm dealing with in my head. And these are the tools that I use and what I do to keep my brain organized, keep files here, and stay on a routine. They're just, you move through life differently. You really do. And there's a lot of people out there who are starting to understand this in themselves, connect with people, and doing the self-diagnosing, but going down the path of actually getting diagnosed. And then that's changing lives out there. And I'm glad to see that. And that's why it does make me upset seeing a certain subset and a rise of people in Gen Z and millennials who are clinging to this, saying they have autism and making it their whole personality, or just claiming to have something that they don't just to fit in because they have one quirk, or they're a little bit awkward here, or they act like this over here. It's more than that. It really is.
And then things start to go better.
Well, I thought you would be playing those videos and I would get to talk crap about you, Amir. But no, you're just being a perfectly reasonable individual. So say something absurd.
I have meltdowns every day since you know me. Every day. And now it's like almost never. I understand why things affect me the way they do. Smells or sounds or whatever. I'm no longer just instantly like, oh my God, everything sucks. The smell, the sound, whatever. I'm sensitive to that because of the way my brain is and whatever. So you have different ways you can cope with it because you're like, oh, it's that, not just that I don't understand it. If you know already anyway, like if what he's saying, he knows. But if you want to have the actual someone who's a professional tell you, then you go and you do it and you're like, of course. And then you go to therapy and you're like, oh, this isn't actually as bad as it felt like it was my entire life. I lived 48 years, disaster, and 4 years now with knowing who I am, and this is way better.
It's way better for a lot of people out there, and people have this view of what autism is in their head, or that's this huge negative thing, and that it's extremely bad, when it's literally just a different pathway of how a brain works.
It's a different structure, and I'm not a doctor, so I can't explain it fully, but it is a different structure of your brain. And there are parts of the brain that don't communicate enough, and there's other parts that communicate way too much. And that's where a lot of the sensory overstimulating comes from, because your brain is just getting way too much of the, hey, it's bright in here signal, and not enough of the, I got stuff that needs to be done in here signal. So it's all communication. How you communicate with other people, and how you communicate with yourself, your inner dialogue too. I have full-ass conversations in my head, and that's part of the routine. If I've totally mapped out a conversation in advance, and then that sequence gets broken while I'm actually having the conversation that I prepped so much for, thankfully, I don't really shut down because I've been in the situation so many times that I've learned how to improvise over the years, but it's very difficult.
Pathway of how someone's eyes are. Yes, these are, a lot of people don't know this. I have laser eye surgery. This is something I already hear. Somebody's like, this is a scam. They're blue light glasses. Because I still have very sensitive eyes. I have dry eye syndrome. Nobody's business. Always had very dry eyes, even before laser eye surgery. But I wear these just because I'm looking at screens all day long.
Touch grass, Amir, but that's not why I paused. I didn't finish my thought earlier. So it's all communication, and that includes how your brain communicates with other parts of your brain. It's all about communication. It's a very complex and very interesting subject to look into.
But the same way someone's vision's different, the same way someone's brain can be wired different. It's just, I don't know, the same way a lot of people wear glasses to help fix their vision is the same way there's a lot of people out there, whether it be autism or ADHD, that have the same kind of spectrum or neural path of how their brain works, and they have to move through life a different way. And that's okay. We're all different. But again, just because you have something in common with someone who has autism doesn't mean you automatically have autism. That's also not how it works.
This Gen Z stare thing, it's funny because it's like y'all swore y'all had autism, and it really was just y'all have no social skills. That's just really what it is. And I honestly, I really thought that the COVID thing was an excuse, but I guess it really did do a number on y'all, because that was right before y'all was going to high school. Some of y'all was going to be your last year of high school.
COVID did mess up a lot of teens out there, the late Gen Z. It did do a number, and I'm very curious how COVID is going to affect Gen Alpha. We already see some remnants of it happening. I made a video on it before, but this is a thing. Caption says you don't have autism, you're just a Gen Z with no social skills. That exists. There are people out there that are Gen Z or millennials, whatever it may be. You just don't have social skills. And just because you don't have social skills doesn't mean you have autism. That's not how that works. You can't just watch a TikTok, oh my god, damn, I'm bad with social skills too, or damn, I get a little bit drained around people too, I must have autism. No, that's not how that works, and there's a lot of people out there doing that, and it's just not the case. You're just socially awkward because you were stuck in the house for 2-3 years in one of the most developmental times in your life, and that's it.
That's it. I think it's a pretty big deal. I think he's kind of downplaying it just a little bit there. But I understand what he's saying for sure. And with the Gen Z stare, I don't really see a big deal in it because it's like whatever. But I did experience it a lot. Not so much with me going into stores or whatever else location and them just staring at me, just stare if you've seen it. I would get it a lot more with coworkers that you would make a statement or ask a question, and I can understand the ask a question bit because sometimes you get asked a question that you genuinely don't know how to answer and you just kind of stare like, But there would be other times that you would just say something to someone that would be younger, like Gen Z, and they would just stare at you. And the way it felt to me, and maybe I was onto something there, or maybe I'm completely off on the wrong track, but what it felt like to me is they were watching a YouTube video or a TikTok, and they were waiting for you to say the next thing. They weren't used to comment and responses. They thought that you would just keep going until they swiped, I guess, to the next thing. That's how it felt to me, but that I could be way off there. But it felt like they were my audience whenever they were my coworker who I needed to convey information to or get information from. Come on, it's your turn. I think I did just eventually take to saying, it's your turn, you go now. And then they would respond. But I genuinely only did that with a couple of people because if you do it with the wrong person, they'll probably get offended.
You don't look autistic, you don't act autistic, baby, I'm autistic, right? I don't know what to tell you. One, it's super offensive to say, but you don't look autistic, right? Autism doesn't have a look. And I know that you think it's a compliment by like DMing me or leaving comments on my posts that are like, but you're so attractive, how could you be autistic? That is so ableist and incredibly offensive. I can't even say it, right? I've been diagnosed 3 different times in my life. 3. Not once, not twice, but thrice. Once as a child, but no one ever told me. So I got diagnosed again as an adult when I was seeing my therapist, and then a year later, I had a psychiatrist and medical doctor diagnose me. And here's the thing, I trust them because they're experts, right? We're not experts because we're online scrolling, we see someone who's autistic, and we follow them, and we're like, oh, that's what autism looks like now. Or my cousin's autistic, or my brother's autistic, and so I'm an expert now because I know what it looks like. You looks like for them, right? You're not an expert, and that's okay. I'm an expert. 1, because I'm autistic, so I'm an expert of me, but 2, I'm an expert because I'm a clinical social worker. So I trust myself as a human to know that I'm autistic. I trust myself as a clinical therapist to know I'm autistic, and I trust my doctors who diagnosed me, right? So I just...
Valid. And autism doesn't have a look. Sure, there may be some traits that people share, but for the most part, that's not always the case.
I guess Amir is just going to ignore the part where this guy said that, pretty much said that you can diagnose yourself. He said that I know because of my life as an autistic person, and that was stated before he said he also knows because of clinical diagnosis. I wonder if Amir is going to comment on that, because I feel like a big part of this video, at least what I thought it was going to be, was him saying you can't diagnose yourself. But it seems like he's in a lot of agreement with this person. So let's see what he does.
In that autism has a look. And that goes to show how we view disabilities, at least in America, how we view disabilities and how we view someone with autism, how we expect them to look or how we expect them to be. Are there some people where you can tell something may be not typically normal? For sure, whatever. But that's not always the case. And just because you can't clearly tell doesn't mean they don't have something or that they're making it up. Because like I said, he's been tested 3 different times. He has it. It's fine, but it's like to say, oh, but you don't look autistic. It's kind of wild.
Just going to skip right over it. Yep, he's not going to comment on it.
In case you're wondering, you're probably not autistic, you're just weird. I love that. The world is overstimulating. It's not you. Are there people out there who actually have autism, finding out things about themselves and moving through the world a different way that works best for them? Yes. Are there people out there actually getting clinically diagnosed? Yes. However, are there people who are just trying to cling on to something, to feel something, to be a part of an identity, to be a part of the community, and just say they have something, just to say they have it for sure?
To be completely honest with you, if people wanted to latch on to autistic communities, I think they could do a lot worse. I think they're at least headed in the right direction of the kind of communities they should be trying to ingratiate themselves with. Because there's a lot of bad communities out there. I don't know if you knew that. So I think the autistic community would be better than a lot of those. So I don't think it would be a problem. That's just me, though.
I've seen it firsthand. I see it all the time. You're just quirky. You're just a little weird. You just have a special hobby. But none of this automatically means that you have a touch of autism or that you're autistic. No, you're just someone that's a little bit different, and that's totally fine. Because we also have to remember there's a lot of things that we're experiencing as humans that are that's completely new to us. Technology, all of this stuff is new, and we're all navigating it in our own different worlds, and how we're interacting with it is different, and what it's doing to us is different. Guys versus girls, that there's so much going on. It's already affecting our behaviors and how we move through the world. So we can't just associate, oh, well, I have this one thing in common with this person with autism, or this one trait, therefore I have it or have a little touch. No, you're probably fine, and that's okay. This world is overstimulating. There's so much going on, so many different changes. You're more than likely.
Would they not be fine if they were autistic? Anyone else catch that? And also, I just want to comment on this and say that there is no, I have a touch of the tism or I'm a bit autistic. Either you are or you are not. I just wanted to say that real quick.
Good.
Hot take, not everything is autism. I know, hear me out. There seems to be a significant population on this app that believes that if you have a certain interest towards something and you develop skills in that subject, and God forbid you have a deeper than average understanding of that subject, you have autism. Like, let's say that you're a kid that grew up watching anime and the animations piqued your interest. And you say, wow, I would really like to learn how to draw like that. So what do? Over the next 5 to 10 years, you spend thousands of hours and thousands of dollars honing your skill. I'm talking, you learn how to draw backgrounds, you learn color theory, you learn different animation styles, you learn how to use Procreate, you learn how to use all of these apps, and then you decide to post a video of your progress. Hey guys, look what I can do. And here comes somebody saying, oh, you must be autistic to be this good at something. Because a lot of people wholeheartedly believe that you cannot be that good at something without having some type of neurodivergence. When in reality, the only thing most people need to get good at something is time, passion, and persistence. Trust me, this is not a knock on people who actually have autism. In fact, I feel that by categorizing every little display of personality and passion as autism, you can validate their day-to-day lives.
I agree with that as well. Something I have definitely noticed with, let's just say, people under 40 is that it doesn't so much have to do with autism, but if you exhibit any kind of personality, it seems like it's a foreign concept to them. Not necessarily they think you're autistic, but they just think it's weird that you have a personality. I don't know. It's just something I've noticed, and it's not like a Gen Z thing. It's just, I would say, people under 40. I've noticed it a bit across the spectrum for people under 40.
That's not to say that you're not on the spectrum. You very well might be. But unless a medical professional diagnoses you with that, don't let TikTok do it for you. If you have any concerns about your mental health, please go get checked out by your person that went to school to help you.
Yes, go get actual help, go get an actual diagnosis, go learn about it more, but don't take 2-3 TikToks and say, yep, that's me, I see myself in that, I have autism, we're done, it's done. We can't, I'll have another video, so be sure to subscribe, just focusing on the sheer amount of self-diagnosing that people have been doing and are doing. But again, it's bittersweet because self-diagnosis is oftentimes the first step, the first path to actually getting a real diagnosis, where it's helping people, but on the other side, it is invalidating a lot of the lived experiences for the people that actually do have said thing that they're being diagnosed with. It doesn't account for the everyday experience and the little troubles and the little things that go on with somebody who actually has autism. You just have people out here just clinging on to something and just, again, wanting to relate, wanting to be a part of something. In reality, that's not the case. It's possible to hone a craft. It's possible to be passionate about a topic. It's possible to just be interested in something and not have autism. It's okay. You're good. And in doing so, and in claiming all these people saying, oh, I have autism, I have a touch of autism, you must, the ones that comment, oh, you must be autistic because of this, you're invalidating so much of what someone with autism actually goes through, and it's just not cool.
So I've started getting into like puzzles and stuff on the weekends. Oh, sounds like someone's got a touch of the tism, if you know what I mean. Not everything is a symptom of autism. Sometimes people just enjoy things.
My nephew likes puzzles.
Accurate. Not everything is a symptom of having autism or having ADHD, whatever it may be. It's not always the case, and there's a lot of people in Gen Z and late millennials doing this. And I hope that we'll get away from this trend of people saying every little thing is autistic. So I hope this video helped explain a little bit to you off the bare bones what autism is, what people actually go through and experience, and the different reasons as to why more Gen Z and even late millennials are identifying as having autism. Because yeah,
It did
there's
none
a
of
lot
those
of information
things.
out there being spread. There's a lot of people sharing their lived experiences and the things that they're going through, and there is a good chunk of people relating to that. They relate with it, they're identifying themselves in it, and through that, they go out and seek the actual help, and then they learn that they actually are autistic. And then boom, like that millennial guy said, there's so much more that makes sense about yourself and looking back on your life, and you can change and navigate the world in a different way. Extremely helpful to a lot of people out there. And on the flip side, there's a lot of people that says every little thing is autism in it, and they're just identifying with it to be a part of a trend and join the community.
I was pretty much just going to say what he said. There's always been something for it to be trendy to be. So when I was a teenager, it was bisexual. Everyone, especially the women, or I guess back then it would have been girls, were bisexual, just across the board. They, for the vast majority of them, they weren't. They just thought it was cool. It was trendy. This was the early 2000s, just to give you a baseline. Maybe when I would have started noticing would have been around 2004. So that's just when I would start noticing it. Probably happened before then as well. But everybody was bisexual. And there was this same kind of discourse in the queer community where it's like, you're invalidating our experiences of being effed over by society when you're just doing this to be trendy. So I do understand where Amir is coming from with this. But at the same time, those people have always existed, and they always will. So to try to fight it, it's not pointless, but it is important to remember that these people have always been here, and they will always be here. And in 5 years, whenever it's something new, maybe it'll be left-handed. Maybe everybody will suddenly be left-handed. Because what does it matter? It's not like we write anymore, we just type. See, showing my age there, you just type. So, yeah, that's all I got. I thought Amir would say more absurd things than he did. You bastard. I bet if he went to the doctor, he'd get diagnosed with being black, and then maybe he would provide himself some more grace. That's all I got. Peace out, y'all.